I want just to make a few remarks and invite our peers to be able to give us his speech before we go into interactive sessions for today's meeting. And in doing so, maybe I'll confine my few remarks which we have put on paper without having to digress so much so that we can be able to save on time. The PS Ministry of Information and Communications, Dr. Bitange Ndemo, the CEOs of the various broadcasting and other media houses who are present, members of the Digital Television Committee, members of the CCK management team, our invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all to this broadcasting forum. I wish to particularly thank representatives of broadcasting stations, some of whom may have traveled from outside Nairobi to participate in this forum on a short notice. We at the Commission consider this forum important in the calendar of digital migration process in Kenya. The primary focus for this forum is to appraise you on the migration to digital TV broadcasting and our efforts to migrate by the agreed national deadline of 2012 in order to meet our national migration obligations before the global analog switch-off of June 2015. This forum is necessitated by the desire of government through the Ministry of Information and Communications and the Communication Commission of Kenya to create an understanding among key stakeholders in order to successfully achieve our goals towards the transition to digital TV broadcasting. The Commission is actively involved in the ongoing process of migration to digital TV broadcasting. In this regard, the Commission is investing substantial resources in hosting the Digital Television Secretariat and carrying out consumer education and awareness campaigns scheduled to kick off soon, among others. This campaign will, among other things, educate consumers on the need to migrate to the new broadcasting framework and purchase the right type of set-top boxes in order to receive the digital signal on their analog TVs as we begin to roll out the digital television broadcasting platform. As you are all aware, the technological upgrade from digital video broadcasting terrestrial DVB-T to a more superior DVB-T2 technology did slow down our migration, including the digital infrastructure rollout plan. We also acknowledge that this technology shift did impact on the investments of some of our stakeholders, such as signal distributors, the importers and dealers of the digital receiving equipment like the set-top boxes. To avoid any recurrence of the sort, we will have separate consultative engagements with them to allow with a view of safeguarding their investment and map out strategies of availing affordable DVB-T2 set-top boxes in the country once the DVB-T2 platform is activated. Throughout this process, we are glad that we have created invaluable synergies through collaboration with the key stakeholders and have made tremendous strides towards achieving our 2012 target. However, we remain cognizant that a number of challenges have emerged and presented major obstacles towards our migration target. We are confident that the Commission, alongside with other stakeholders in the DTC, will ensure that the challenges do not affect the 2012 switch-off deadline. Ladies and gentlemen, as you are all aware, under the new regulatory framework, all existing commercial and community broadcasters are required to reapply for licenses as provided by Clause 46 of the Kenya Information and Communications Act, CAP 411A. The Commission put up a public notice in the print and send out individual letters to broadcasters to complete requisite application forms and return them for consideration within 3 months between 15th August and 15th November this year. We wish to assure you that your legitimately acquired frequency resources will not be taken away from you during this process, as long as you are up to date with your frequency licensing fees. In addition, the Commission published the Broadcasting Code of Practice for free-to-air radio and television and gave industry players time to peruse it and send comments and suggestions before it is finally gazetted. We thank those of you who submitted their inputs on this code. I also wish to assure you that your inputs have been taken into account during the final revision of the code. I wish to invite you as partners and opinion shapers in this process to provide airtime on the media on your media outlets to enable us share the most informed and objective views with other consumers as regards the migration process. For us, this represents a win-win scenario. You will have instant feedback on market insight, and we as CCK will achieve our mandate as consumer watchdog on this very important initiative. As I conclude, it is my hope that at the end of this session, we will also migrate from the current mentality of us versus we, or them, as you may wish to call us, to the new common understanding of we, so that together we move this sector forward and achieve and ensure that Kenyans achieve its invaluables that it has with it. And as I conclude, I just want to say that with these remarks, it is now my pleasure to invite the chief guest, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Information and Communications, to address the gathering. Thank you very much.
The Acting Director General, Francis Wangusi, our Chief Guest, Patrick Kwaku, Engineer Karaoke, Secretary, National Communication Secretariat, Engineer Obam, and my sister Rachel here, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I want to recognize those of you who have come, DMTV, can you, what? MultiJoice, then Cast Media, Standard Group, thank you, Radio Africa, the chief guest, Broadcast Solutions International, Karibu, Wananchi Group, it was here, Alichoka, the Nation Group, NMG, I can see Ian here, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, Karibu, Capital FM, Karibu, the Seventh-day Adventists, EAU, Karibu. So I you or us or we to discuss issues relating to this sector. We are at a very critical stage at the moment because we are undergoing transition, and I want to reiterate what the Acting Director General said, that we need to begin to move to the new licensing framework. This is what every Kenyan wants, because if you recall, some of the problems we had in 2007, 2008, it was lack of regulation. That was the major problem that we had, which we must have in place before the next year's elections. So we ask you kindly that you take this opportunity to migrate to the new licensing framework. That would allow us to begin to implement the new regulations that we have put in place, as well as the broadcast code. This is what would create peace in this country as we approach the new, the elections of 2012. It is also important that we begin to migrate to the digital framework. It is important because it needs a minimum of 5 years to go through the learning curve. The learning curve is not only technology, it would also be the kind of business models that you are going to build. So saying that 2015 is far is actually fooling ourselves. We have had requests from other African countries that we seek for extension, but Kenya has refused and said we have time to implement this, because it's a shame that only Africa that has not made steps towards moving towards the digital framework. The benefits of the digital framework are articulated to you, you understand them, but you need to go through the process yourselves, because only then you can begin to know where you would be making your money from, how the technology would behave. And of course the government will try as much as possible to help in areas of technology, for example, the migration now from DVB-T to DVB-T2. I want to, Karibu Wananchi, Richard, I wanted them to clap for you, but yes. I want to confirm to you here that at the end of this month, we are able to migrate from DVB-T to DVB-T2. Please let us not get any resistance on this, because I know most of you had issued the set of boxes under DVB-T, and you would find it that you would have to have DVB-2 set-top box for the your new clients. We are still consulting with Treasury to see if those who already bought, I think there are about 20,000, 15 to 20,000, if we can find a mechanism of providing them with a new one under DVB-T2. This would enable us to migrate much more peacefully. And as I say this, we would do it up to the time we put the advert that we are going to migrate to DVB-T2. It is important also to know that DVB-T2 is very critical to you, because a lot of content that we get now is under HD. HD, we can't operate optimally under DVB-T. That's why we need migration to DVB-T2. Another confirmation I want to make here, by the end of this year, we would have covered most parts of this country. And by June, 70% of the population will be covered, and practically 100%, because our strategy on northern Kenya is to use satellite to cover most areas that have been very difficult for us with energy. The figure 4 billion that we gave earlier, much of it was going for energy in northern Kenya. Actually, 2.5 billion was going to go to Kenya Power to provide energy to boost the stations up north. That would be not a very good investment of resources, because we can use direct-to-home TV, which would actually alleviate spending that cost, and we can use some of it to subsidize satellite providers to provide that service in northern Kenya. So practically 100% of the country would be covered by June, that we can actually migrate to digital fully by June. It is not a wish that I'm saying here. We know the steps that we have taken. The government has given, for example, KBC sufficient resources. We are licensing 2 more signal distributors. This is the Pan-African group and also the media owners whom we are going to license to provide the signal. Even them, because they already have infrastructure, the deployment would be very quick to migrate to the new digital framework. Then the Acting Director General requested here that we need your help in terms of promotion. We need to ask Kenyans to begin to move to the new digital framework. It is important for us to do that because if you look at the map of the countries that have migrated, only Africa and a few countries in East Asia, in Asia that have not migrated. We don't want to be the ones requesting for extensions when the entire world has indeed moved. So we need to donate a bit of public space, or I don't know, public, whatever we call it, and begin to urge Kenyans to move to the new framework. But at the same time, on the ICT sector, we are finding need that those who may go straight for digital TVs and discard the old ones, let us harvest them because we can use them to deliver education to schools throughout the country. They can either donate to schools, as we talk to satellite providers who are having learning channels, we can pump knowledge to schools using the so-called old TVs as people buy straight the new TV sets. I'm not saying that everybody is going to buy a new digital TV, but there are those who would want to buy the new digital TVs. They should not throw away the old ones because they can still be used, especially under DTH technology. So I think media, you have a big role to help us kusanya those, I don't know, kusanya is what in English? Put together all of those, and then we donate them to schools. We can actually do a great deal with those TVs. So we are not going to waste anything as we move forward. One of the policy as we continue to debate these issues, the government is willing to work with you very closely for this country. Let us avoid fighting. I think by now everybody knows that government had good intentions to come up with a new or the revised Communications Act, which has actually helped to bring a lot of understanding between media owners and also government and those who have practice in the area. Currently, as I think we should have stated earlier, the reasons we're here, we've been looking at the gaps that we have, especially in IT and broadcast in this country. The landmass is covered 70% by the broadcast, but 90% of the population is the only that receives. We must address the 10%. That is why we are proposing a combination of technologies to make sure that every Kenyan has access to broadcast in this country. And as we move forward, you are going to see a lot more content that is more focused to certain parts of this country. And that's why CCK has found it necessary that we look for the gaps, we find ways of filling those gaps, and work together as Kenyans as a unit. And that's what Wangusi said here. Let us be referring to we or us as how we are moving forward to advance this. I want to urge you to pay close attention to what is happening on the ICT sector, because you would find that much of the infrastructure in the ICT sector, you are the people who would end up using it, especially the rollout in the fiber optics throughout the country. And the government is making sure that we create a framework that would enable you to access any part of this country through the fiber optics, and have a backhaul for your services to any place in this country. So with those few remarks, I don't know, was I to invite the chief guest? Oh, he was to make the closing remarks. You know, the end remarks, he can tear me down and I would have no choice to reply, but I would just leave it there. I thank you for asking me to make a few remarks. Asante sana.
Thank you, Wanda PS, for your insightful remarks.
As well as with the media in general, print media and other types of media. And then during our discussions, based on what you will discuss with you, we'll be able to define roles and responsibilities for a smooth transition. I think one of the things that has been mentioned both by the Acting Director General and the Permanent Secretary was the issue of supporting the DTC in consumer awareness, in terms of the DTC will have resources that be used, but in addition to that, we'll rely on you, especially as broadcasters, to help us. As we use those meager resources, you also help us in expanding and passing on the message. I know some of you had already done this because you've carried articles, you had hosted some members of the DTC previously to talk about the process, but we need a lot more support from you. So the question is, why migrate? I suppose you are broadcasters, but just to beat this again to death. In 2006, we had a conference which resulted in a treaty that mandated that we need to migrate our broadcasting system from analog to digital. This was actually due to the fact that we were running out of spectrum in the analog environment. And some of you as broadcasters know that you could not get additional channels to put additional content. So the migration to digital was a natural progression in the broadcasting value chain, just as it has happened in telecommunication, from the analog phones to the digital phones to 3G. Now you can do email on your phone. So this for us is the same sort of path that we are following in the broadcasting industry. So the treaty was signed, and as a result of that, we are obliged, first of all. Secondly, we also want to take advantage of this new technology. Kenya is one of the countries that participated in the process and ratified the decision. And also, because digital is so efficient, we want to take advantage of this efficiency so that we can manage the spectrum, which is a scarce resource, more efficiently. And also, we want to migrate because migration will help us enhance the quality of our pictures. For those who may have received even the DVB-T, I'll tell you my personal experience. I never used to receive, there's a channel called TV Channel 5. I think it comes from somewhere. I never used to receive it. But when it was put on the digital platform, I didn't even change my aerial. I connected the set-top box and it's as clear as the rest. Not to mention that now I only use one aerial. I live in a part of town where I need 5 different aerials pointing in 5 different directions to be able to get the many channels that are being broadcast in analog. I'm sure you've had this migration for a long time, but as they say, nothing works as planned, because there are always challenges. Even in life, we face challenges. So some of the challenges that we are facing in the analog environment is the issue of infrastructure sharing. The ministry is very much concerned about the issue of infrastructure sharing, especially infrastructure that is does not contribute to the competitiveness. The issue of co-location. I've just mentioned my case where I have I had 5 different aerials pointing in 5 different directions. So right now, that in the analog environment, that was not happening. Each broadcaster, I think, once they went to the CCK to get their license, they looked for the most convenient place to put up their antennas. As a result, we have all these towers and these sites and these buildings that actually combined cost a lot of money, and this money could actually be used for to develop the broadcasting industry, especially content, the development of content. The second point there, that you have transmitters located in different locations. You have Limuru, and Limuru, different parts of Limuru. You have NSSF building, Ngong, Nation Center, the Lonro House, Rahim Tula in Upper Hill. They are all over. I'm sure I'm talking about what you know. So this is actually a situation that is prevailing now. Now, as a result of this, you find that reception is not optimized. And you may find you have very clear reception on some channels. Other channels are blurred, they are ghosting. Ghosting is where you have like several images showing on your TV screen. Sound, or it may get sound and not picture, or get picture and no sound. Not to mention that it is not pleasing to the eye. So when you have towers all over, and it doesn't make maybe a nicely designed building look very nice when you have towers sticking from every corner of the building. So as we move to digital, some of the benefits which I had mentioned earlier, and you probably are aware, better spectrum efficiency, because with the migration, use compression, so you can compress many more channels in the space where only one channel exists. Better picture quality, I've told you about my own experience. Very clear sound. We can accommodate many more TV stations, so perhaps next time we'll have, when we've already done the migration after June next year, we'll have double the number of people who are in this room, because we'll have licensed many more broadcasters. And you have, of course, interactivity. One of the benefits, of course, the issue of the electronic program guide, where you are able to see what is going to come in the next 1 week. You can go further and even tag the program that you want to watch, and at the particular time, the program will auto-tune itself. Further than that, you can also, digital allows you to record a program and watch it later at your convenience. In fact, talking about the electronic program guide, one of the things that we see as a responsibility of the broadcasters is to ensure that the electronic program guide is properly and accurately composed. If you look at satellite TV, those who receive satellite TV, there are normally several categories of programs. There are those programs that are originated by broadcasters, individual broadcasters, and those that come from the content aggregator. Some channels will show you programs on half an hour, 1 hour basis with details of the program and what the program is about. Some channels will tell you just the name of the station for the next 10 hours. So if you want to know, for lack of a better example, when Papa Shirandula is coming, actually you can't tell. Why? Because the electronic program guide has not been properly managed. So I think it's a big responsibility for broadcasters to make sure that the electronic program guide is properly managed. And it's also to your benefit, because then somebody can serve the program guide and be able to see what is going to come on your station. And you can use that to actually advertise your station. So it is one of the things that actually we need to pay attention to. It's not just enough to have the EPG there, but you need to have an EPG that interacts with the viewer. So what have we done so far in terms of the migration process? In 2007, after the conference, after the treaty was signed in Geneva, the ministry formed a task force to work on the recommendations on, and the strategies for migration. Because I'm the one moderating, I'll use this as a commercial opportunity, I actually chaired that task force. So just for your information, and the members of the DTC were also in that task force. So the DTC is actually implementing the recommendations that the task force came up with. So after the task force presented the report to the government, that's not my voice, I think it is the microphone again. The task force presented the recommendations to the ministry, and the ministry, one of the recommendations was the formation of a committee to assist in the migration process. That's how the DTC was created. And then the task force also developed a plan which would guide the process. Then after that, in 2009, the prevailing standard then was what we call DVB-T. And KBC was mandated to launch a pilot, which was launched by His Excellency the President on the 9th of December 2009. And that is the one which has been running in Nairobi. Now, between that time and this year, the DVB-T standard was upgraded to DVB-T2, which is just a more efficient system of broadcasting. And maybe just to elaborate, the PS talked about HD and you know, the DMTV is here. DMTV offers mobile TV. In DVB-T, if you wanted to put an HD broadcasting, you had to set up a separate network. Then you had to put up another network for standard definition and a separate network for mobile. With DVB-T2, it allows us to actually independently, but within the same channel, broadcast high definition, standard definition, and mobile. And what they are working on now also is the ability to broadcast 3D TV from the same channel. So you can just configure, sort of like those who are in the telecom industry. You just take a chunk of bandwidth and subdivide it dynamically to allocate it to the different users. So this DVB-T2 actually has offered a very big opportunity to do many more things. And that's why a decision was made by the government to adopt it. Also, the DVB-T was only in Nairobi, and we felt that we'd get many more advantages. Not to mention that for DVB-T, we were told you could put maybe 8 to 10 channels in where you have one TV station now. With DVB-T2, that capacity doubles, which means, again, we are able to offer many more different types of programs. So at the stage where we are now, we have made a decision to upgrade to DVB-T2. And many countries have actually done the same. Within East Africa, we have a forum where we discuss the issues of migration, and all the East African countries have also decided to migrate to adopt the DVB-T2 standard. So as a result of this digital broadcasting, as the PS mentioned, there are 3 signal distributors who are going to provide services. The first one is KBC, then there's a Pan-African network, and then there's going to be a third one. So these signal distributors will be required to comply with the following, will have the following features. Must have open access. That is, if today I decide to be a broadcaster, I would come to any of the 3 and they'll be able to give me service. They cannot say that they will not give me service because perhaps I'm a competitor. So that's one condition. And the system must be compatible with the set-top boxes. That is the DVB-T2 set-top boxes. So that if you can buy a set-top box anywhere and you come, as long as it meets the standards, you will come and use it in Kenya. So for the migration, then you do not have proprietary features so that you can allow free-to-air services to be received. And also, the the signal distributors, they require that their system should allow for multimedia services. For example, digital allows you to even interact with content, maybe send a message to a server and then download maybe video on demand or some other content through the broadcasting system. So I've already talked about the DVB-T2 technology and the advantages. So the challenges that we have faced is we've had the plans and the strategies were well developed, but financial constraints have posed a challenge to the implementation. As you know, we have, in our country, we are facing many challenges, which some unforeseen. We are competing for funds with primary education, health, and roads. Then hunger came in, implementation of the constitution. So that is a big challenge to the implementation of migration. But also by opening up the signal distribution sphere, it allowed for competition and therefore other maybe private providers to come in and invest in the sector. But nevertheless, as the PS mentioned, the government has managed funds and resources and gave to KBC, and they are in the process of rolling out their network. I think if it's appropriate and if there are questions, the KBC is here, they'll be able to explain maybe how their timelines look like. But remember, the timeline for us is by June next year, we're supposed to have dispensed with the migration process. So just to maybe, as I go towards the conclusion, that you as broadcasters, you influence the public, therefore you can help us a great deal in terms of conveying the message and telling people what it is that we're trying to do in terms of migration. Also the issue of content. We are getting all these channels, but what is it that is going to go through the channels? Are we going to see a situation where we have the same content repeated on multiple channels? But it's an opportunity for you as broadcasters to produce themed channels, something that perhaps you are not able to do before, so that you find in a day you've watched comedy, drama, football, wrestling, all in the space of maybe half an hour or 1 hour of one another. So this offers us an opportunity to develop the different types of programs so that can fill the channels. And also, you can compare with what's happening with your compatriots elsewhere and bring best practices so that you can bring the public to understand the process. I remember when the US were doing their migration, the government actually did not pay for the public messages. The broadcasters took it upon themselves to do the awareness. Of course, the government also did their maybe general awareness campaigns, but all the ads on TV and radio were sponsored by the broadcasters themselves. So this is what I was mentioning, that in addition to the resources that the DTC may have and maybe give to you to assist in the consumer education, you could also help us and at the same time create awareness about these new opportunities that are coming up. Of course, also, if you have issues, the CCK is there as the sector regulator. The ministry is always there ready to discuss with you. Some of you are represented through, you have representatives in the DTC. If there are issues, you can always bring them to the DTC so that we try and give you the correct information. Yeah, that was actually my last slide. Didn't know. You can see I was not the one who prepared the presentation. So we have within the Digital Television Committee, we have a secretariat which is hosted by the Communication Commission of Kenya. And the secretariat is the one that manages the day-to-day operations of the DTC. And you can get in touch with them with the contacts that are there. Also, there's a lot of information which the secretariat has, so if there's additional information that you require, please just get in touch with them. But basically, the purpose of my presentation was just set the tone for the interactive session that's going to come. But please feel free to ask questions. If we are able to answer them, well and good. If we are not able to, we'll be able to answer them later. I think in conclusion, I'd now like to ask the keynote speaker and the chief guest to resume their seats here because they require them to. The keynote speaker was Dr. Ndemo, and the chief guest is Mr. Patrick Kwaku. And of course, the acting director general to join me on the high table here for the interactive session. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
That is if the new licensees would not have rolled out by then. But I'm pretty sure that the new licensees would actually also deploy. What I know, and I would ask the MD KPC to confirm that actually they will be ready this month to take us to T2, and also by December to cover certain areas, and also by July that 70% would have been covered with the terrestrial, and then the remainder we would talk to satellite providers to see where we can subsidize such that 100% of the country will be covered. That's how I made the statement. What remains is the MD to clarify whether my statement is correct or not. It is not the timing when we gave the money that matters. It is how fast they react when the money is seen. So, Mkubwa, can you confirm?
Do we have a microphone for...
Yeah, I'm not. The June 30th, 2012, we could practically switch off, but whoever would be in analog at that time, it's to their own disadvantage, because you would not have gotten into the bandwagon of going through the learning curve of the new framework. But 2015, whether you like it or not, whether Kenya likes it or not, ITU would switch over. So we don't want people to wait until 2015, because practically every country has actually moved to go through the learning curve. The learning curve, as I said, is not only technology, it is even the models that you are going to adopt for your businesses. It is to your benefit. What the government is doing is to make sure that they give you access at least 3 years to the switch-off period for you to go through the learning curve, so that you don't blame anybody that we were not given adequate time. So it is to your benefit that you move next year, so that you begin to understand how the broadcast, the content delivery, and what other value-added services you can do. So by 2015, you are actually ready for the switchover. Even those countries that moved 10 years ago, like Britain, they still are coming up with the new value-added services to improve on their revenue. So this is for you, but the government is making sure that they give you the basic infrastructure. And also, by giving 2 more licensees, it means that we have broadened it. Even them, they would have, probably by the end of the year, next year, they would have actually covered most of the country. And they would also go through the learning curve. So I think I've emphasized this, that it is to your benefit to migrate next year. You are going to see what Obama was saying, a lot of value-added services, a lot of revenue streams that you don't know now when you are stuck with the old model of advertising. Yeah, it is going to say. Okay. Yeah.
Today, we will declare this 4 squares of this room Luyala. Now, so I will speak on the MOA's position. And I have a proverb that comes from Ghana which says, do not look where you've fallen, look where you slept. I think the DTC have done a terrible job selling the benefits of migration to broadcasters. As I sit here today, I do not believe that any broadcaster at heart has taken on board the things you've said. And I'm being brutally honest because we need to be. I believe strongly in the need to migrate this country to a digital platform because for my business, it gives me an opportunity to go into places where I cannot go. Today, I have KISS TV only in this town, and I can't go anywhere. So it's in my interest. But also let us state and speak about the things that are a barrier so that together we can move forward. Now, we've talked about us versus them, and I'm glad that today we are talking about we together. And if we are talking about we, it's important, I think, to go back to a bit of history so we don't make the same mistakes. I think the position of the Media Owners Association in this country has been very clear. The media owners have felt that the migration process has had some significant issues of non-involvement. The very first DTC recommendation was that 2 private licenses be given. In fact, 3. One to KBC, a second one to the media owners, and a third one to a private broadcaster. And I'm sure that was the original recommendation. Somewhere along the line, it became KBC and 2 licenses to bid. But I'm very happy that the government have felt it necessary today, and I found Dr. Ndemo to be a very, very positive person in this light, that that the media owners today have been assured that they will get their own license to do what they want. And I think it's proper that that affirmative action has taken place. And I'd like to thank the ministry and the government for this position. I think there are 2 things that are a significant issue. I think every broadcaster knows that we have to go to the digital platform. We're happy to do that. But I think the focus, in my mind, should be on 2 critical things. In any country where the migration has failed is because we have focused on the supply end, not the demand end. I think, 1, the issue of set-top boxes, how much they are going to be, how we're going to get them in plentiful supply for Kenyans to buy, is a crucial thing that we ought to all think about. I think that is 1. I think the second issue for us broadcasters is really content. And today, if you look at the channels that are available, there are a lot of foreign content that's been replicated. And the challenge for us as broadcasters today is to find ways to create local content at a low cost. But I think thirdly, related to that, and I think an issue that the Commission has to really take care of is the issue of licensing, because it also clouds the waters. Now, I think the new Director General, who I know to be a very reasonable man, because I do know him personally and he's a friend, and therefore I hope I speak among friends, did indicate that under the law, everybody in Kenya today in the broadcasting sector is operating illegally. Illegally. And therefore, technically, everybody could be shut down. But I know him to be a very, very reasonable man. Now, I think the evolution of that law saw for the first time the media in significant conflict with the executive. And some of us still believe that that is probably one of the most flawed laws in this country. But having said that, I'm also very happy that the PS has taken leadership in bringing the media together to get involved in creating, the basis of a new law to correct some of the things that are a real issue for some of us. And I think if we are going to proceed, I think those 2 things, in terms of dealing with the migration from the old licensing framework to the new licensing framework needs to be managed and managed properly so it does not become an issue. Now, I know some of our colleagues who are saying that the current migration of the licenses have to be done in a manner that does not compromise any investment in the sector, and that any attempt to compromise significant investments in the sector will cause destabilization for the industry. And given that the law courts are now a lot more open, people are willing to take their chances. In my view, I think it's completely unnecessary, given that the PS has indicated quite clearly that there is a basis for talking. And I think that the issue of the migration needs to be taken with care so that people's investments are protected. I think, in my view, if those things are done, you do have the support of the industry. And I think, in my view, if those things are done, we'll be putting our money to support it, because we do not believe that we should not support this.
Thank you, Mr. Babu, for being
MOA, because the truth is that they did not trust us, the government, but we are we now. They did not trust. They did not trust the government. They actually thought we would switch them off, and even when we gave the second one, they thought we would instruct them to switch them off. So out of that, the DTC actually met and agreed, let us give 3, and the 3 can roll out. That is the positioning. There is nothing wrong about it. Even them, they are very happy. I don't know whether they trust one another, but they are very happy.
Thank you.
That you put your
That is also true. Now let's take the next.
What extra, what incentive are we giving? Actually, we gave a whole signal distribution, a whole of it, so that they can say 10, 5, 6, whatever. We have already given. The same question, what do we bring on the table? We actually brought it on the table the first time when we said you can use DTT without paying a coin. Yeah, that even Patrick has said yes. Yeah, we have actually done everything to make sure that this process moves. Even today, if Nation decided to come back, still is free. That is what we have brought on the table. You are not paying for it. I think the engineers would answer this DTH and DTT, but I want to say something on price control. We cannot do price control, but the assumption is when you have many players, competition would actually regulate the price. And if worse comes to worse, move to Signet. The government would not exploit you. It is the best. To consumers, I know there are some set of boxes or some flash disk size things which are $5 to $20. Only that people complicate things. So we would let them start rolling out. Then we discover this. It's going to be discovered. I remember I used a sort of flash disk thing to convert the analog to digital. There is technology, but some of these dealers, are they here?
No, they are the next ones.
Don't tell them, we would undermine them and make it affordable to Kenyans. Yes.
Eventually, I think you can.
Yeah, I think I'd like to assure the regulator and the government, as represented by my good friend Dr. Ndemo, that when the media in this country puts its mind to it, it does a great job. As we have proven very recently with the Kenyans for Kenya initiative. I think you have our support. You certainly have my personal support. And I don't think there's any time the CCK or the government has called on us to support on any initiative, and we have balked at it. But I'm also a man of message, and I think we need to align the messages that we want to give to people on migration. But I think you are media fraternity, you will have our support. But let's sit behind closed doors, let's talk, and I think what needs to be done will be done.
The law. On the law, I want him to say that I actually gave it to them to look at it,
Yes.
that they are not even complaining about it, the one he complained about.
Now that he's drawn me into this one, let me say that Dr. we are grateful. For the first time, the government has truly extended a hand to say that the media must look at the law. And we do hope that that process will continue and that that partnership will be rolled forward. But let me state specifically, and let me go to the specific issues that Mr. Omo has asked me to address. What are the issues that are a problem for broadcasters? Let me start with the first one. The first one under the current law is that any broadcaster who owns more than one frequency in any market will have to surrender it over a period of time. I think that's an issue. And it's an issue because the licenses were issued legitimately, some of them. For those that have been issued legitimately, people have invested on those platforms. And I think individual broadcasters and companies that have invested on a legitimate license should have legitimate expectation of protection. That's the first issue. And so I think the discussion will be around the period of surrender. I think that's the first thing. I have no sympathies for illegally acquired frequencies, none at all. And for that, I do not believe it's a matter for the MOA to discuss. I think the MOA wants assurances around legitimate frequencies on which legitimate investments have been made and for which we have legitimate expectations. I think that's the first one. I think the second issue is one of the content regulation by the CCK. And I think the CCK has put out some content regulation, but I think it is very much the view of the industry that that should be handled in a different forum. To the extent that we do not believe it is the role of the CCK to determine content in any shape, manner, or form. We believe that that content regulation should be done through an independent regulatory body.
What is the broadcast?
Exactly, that which we have discussed with. I think there is an interim solution, and that solution needs to be negotiated and discussed. And I think those are the two significant issues. I think the third issue is in the proposals that have been made for the licensing. I believe that radio licenses are supposed to be for 5 years and TV licenses are 7 years. Now, I was recently in one of my favorite countries, Zimbabwe, where even the great Zimbabwe has put out a tender and the licenses for radio and television are 10 years. Now, in my view, when people make a reasonable investment, I think you should give them a reasonable time to recover investment. So I think the time period is also another issue. And I would implore the new Director General and the Minister to really actively engage, because the industry wants to engage around those issues, to really make for a good transition. Given that we are now not in a period of us versus them, and we are in a period of us and we, I do hope that that appeal will be listened to.
Okay. Can I answer this, please? I said that we have given the draft laws to you. You can say this content broadcasting and the Media Council be merged. You have that power. We have actually given you everything. Even these 10 years, we are demanding that is the same law. So the ball is on your court. we are waiting to see what you will
come
make a
back to you.
recommendation. Then we will adopt that.
Thank you.
I'll take another round, but again,
Of technology to challenging technology and coming up with technology that would help our people to access. This is what we have been saying. We worked with the University of Nairobi to see how to cut the costs of these STPs, or of which ways we can use. The problem of access, we are working on it because everybody is thinking we are going to import these things from some other country. They are so simple. Even if you open it yourself, you would feel so bad you are importing it from China. But because we like buying packaged things from China, that is why we are having a problem. And we are looking at it. University of Nairobi has done so much with it. As I said, we would come up with something that can give access. I think Acting Director General can say about licensing. I don't do that myself.
Mr. Ambusi, as you make those comments, also give your closing remarks so that we...
It is content that is going to drive people from the current platform to a new platform. If we can't come with new content that is appealing, there is no incentive for moving. So I'm actually appealing to all of you that we can actually create local content. You know from the statistics that local content, 90% of the people watching are watching local content. So please, work on the content, help us to move to a new platform. Asante.
My duty is very simple, to thank you, because really this is about the broadcasters. So I'd like to thank all the chief executives here, all the senior executives here who have made time to come here. I'd like to thank my friends from the CCK who are here also to support us, and but also I'd like to thank the new Acting Director General for really creating a tone of openness with broadcasters, and I think we really thank you for that. For Dr. Ndemo, I can only say that you continue to have our support, and the day you decide to declare your presidency, we shall be there to hear you. For Mr. Obam and my good friend here, I'd like to say thank you, and I'd like to say that on behalf of the MOA, we are not on the other side. We are people who will listen, who will talk to you, who will engage you, sometimes aggressively, but all for a good cause. Because we believe that the executive side always serve the national interest, which they should, and we think we serve the public interest, which we should. Thank you.
Okay, there's an award printed in capital letters.